What if your favorite stars looked completely different, or were completely different? These celebs rewrote their own stories. Elliot Page didn't just step into the spotlight, he was born in it. His talent was undeniable, his presence magnetic. But behind the camera flashes and red carpets, something far deeper was unfolding. In 2020, Elliot shared something deeply personal with the world. He came out as a transgender man. It was more than a headline. For many, it was a moment that helped reshape how society views gender identity. Elliot's announcement wasn't loud or flashy. It was calm, sincere, and honest. And yet it shook the internet, sparking conversations around the globe. What made Elliot's journey so powerful was the contrast. Just a few years earlier, he was walking red carpets in gowns, being praised for his performances, but quietly struggling with his identity. The pressure of fame only made things harder. As Elliot later shared, wearing women's clothing, being referred to with the wrong pronouns. It didn't just feel uncomfortable, it felt like he was disappearing, like he was watching someone else live his life. After coming out, Elliot's transformation wasn't just emotional, it was also physical. He shared a shirtless photo after undergoing top surgery, smiling in the sun by the pool. That photo went viral, not because of shock or controversy, but because of joy. He looked free. And that freedom inspired thousands who were watching from the sidelines, feeling invisible. Elliot Page became more than an actor. He became a symbol of resilience, not because he set out to be one, but because he chose to live truthfully. And in doing so, he gave others the courage to do the same. He showed that authenticity isn't a luxury, it's a lifeline. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply say, "This is who I am." Most people know the Wachowski siblings as the minds behind The Matrix, a film that didn't just change cinema, it changed how we think about reality itself. But behind the scenes, the story of Lana and Lily Wachowski is just as fascinating as any sci-fi plot they've ever created. It's a story not of fiction, but of identity, transformation, and finding peace in truth. Lana was the first to transition publicly. For years she worked quietly in Hollywood, known for being intensely private. Then, during the press tour for Cloud Atlas, she stepped out as her true self. Not with a loud declaration, but simply by being present. Audiences were stunned not because it was controversial, but because of how seamlessly she stepped into who she really was. Her pink dreadlocks and confident voice became a symbol not just of change, but of control over one's narrative. Lily followed a few years later. She revealed that she had also transitioned, after years of quiet struggles. What makes their stories so compelling is how much they resonate with the themes in their work: identity, freedom, and waking up from the version of life others expect you to live. It was never just science fiction. It was personal. Neither Lana nor Lily made their transition the center of their public image. They didn't go on every talk show or write a memoir, they simply lived. And when they spoke, it was meaningful. Lily, in particular, shared how writing helped her cope with dysphoria, how constructing stories gave her the courage to rewrite her own. Their legacy as filmmakers is secure, but their decision to live openly added something more. Not prestige, humanity. For anyone who ever felt like they were living inside someone else's version of the world, the Wachowskis quietly proved that you can rewrite the script. When Gabby Tuft stepped into the wrestling ring, the world knew her as Tyler Rex, a tough, towering competitor with long hair, muscles, and a fierce persona. But few knew the internal conflict she carried every time she walked through those ropes. Behind the bravado was someone fighting a much deeper battle, one that no crowd could see. Years after retiring from WWE, Gabby stunned the internet with a post that was equal parts raw and radiant. She came out as transgender. That moment was more than personal, it was historic. Never before had a WWE star transitioned so publicly with such openness. Gabby didn't sugarcoat anything. She talked about the anxiety, the fear of losing her wife and daughter, and the uncertainty of being accepted by fans who only knew the wrestler. But she also talked about freedom, about what it felt like to finally look in the mirror and recognize the person staring back. Gabby's transition was about more than appearance. It was about finally breathing. She began documenting her journey on social media, answering questions, sharing the rough days, and celebrating the small victories. She wasn't just transforming herself, she was educating others too. What surprised many was the support. Messages from fans, from fellow wrestlers, and even from people who once booed her in the ring started pouring in. Her strength didn't lie in a wrestling move, it was in her honesty. Today she uses her platform not for spectacle but for visibility, and in doing so, Gabby turned her greatest challenge into her most powerful legacy. Caitlyn Jenner's life has been full of headlines. From standing on the Olympic podium in the 1970s to standing tall as one of the most recognized transgender women in the world today. But what makes Caitlyn's story unforgettable isn't just her fame, it's the way she transformed under the gaze of millions, in a world that watched every step. Back in 1976, Bruce Jenner was seen as the ultimate American athlete. After winning the gold medal in the decathlon at the Montreal Olympics, he became a national hero. Endorsements, magazine covers, cereal boxes, Bruce was everywhere. But behind that all-American smile was a secret that felt too big to speak aloud. Caitlyn later revealed that even during the Olympic training, even in the height of success, she was struggling with her identity. Decades passed, and while the world still saw Bruce, Caitlyn was quietly trying to find herself. She dressed in private, she researched, she asked questions in secret. She was afraid of what would happen if the truth ever got out. Would her children accept her? Would fans turn their backs? In 2015, she finally answered those fears by stepping forward, publicly coming out as a transgender woman. Caitlyn's story shows that even those who seem to have it all might be fighting battles no one sees. Her journey from Olympic legend to transgender advocate is one of the most talked about transitions in modern history. Not because of drama, but because of how much it meant for others watching and waiting for their own moment. Being the child of two of the most famous entertainers in America, Sonny and Cher, Chaz Bono was born into the spotlight. From childhood, cameras followed him, tabloids speculated, and nothing about his life was private. But while the world knew Chastity Bono, Chaz was quietly dealing with an identity that didn't match the name or the body he was born into. Chaz's journey to living openly as a transgender man was long and deeply personal. In his earlier years, he came out as a lesbian. But even then, something still didn't feel right. It wasn't just about attraction, it was about self, about comfort, about truth. In 2008, Chaz began transitioning, a process he later described as finally being able to exhale after holding his breath for years. What made Chaz's story so significant was the openness. He wasn't just a celebrity going through a personal change, he became a voice for the transgender community. He spoke at events, answered tough questions in interviews, and made himself available to those trying to understand. His relationship with his mother, Cher, also captured public attention. At first, even Cher struggled to understand, but over time, their bond deepened. Cher became one of his strongest supporters, proving that love can grow through change. Chaz Bono didn't choose the spotlight, but he chose to use it. His transition became one of the most public in history, and through it, he helped pave the way for others. His story is proof that living authentically, even with the world watching, is a powerful act of courage. Andrea Pedic broke every rule in the modeling world before she ever spoke publicly about her transition. From a young age, she stood out, tall, striking, with sharp features that fashion designers adored. Early in her career, Andrea modeled both men's and women's clothing, walking runways for top designers in Paris and New York. The industry labeled her androgynous, and she became a sensation. But to Andrea, that word didn't quite fit. It wasn't about playing with fashion, it was about finding herself. At first she kept her personal identity quiet. The fame was growing fast, and she wasn't sure if the industry, or the public, would support her if she came out. But in 2014, Andrea took a leap and told the world she had transitioned. She made it clear, she was a woman, she'd always known. The announcement didn't shrink her career, it elevated it. Andrea became the first openly transgender model to appear in major beauty campaigns. Shortly after her transition, she landed a deal with Makeup Forever, and later appeared in Vogue. That was a milestone. No transgender model had ever been featured in the iconic magazine's pages before. She was rewriting the rules of fashion and doing it with grace. What makes Andrea's story so gripping is how bold and calm she remained through it all. She didn't demand the spotlight, it followed her naturally. She spoke about her surgery, her identity, and her hopes without turning it into a spectacle. Her goal was simple, to live in truth and keep doing what she loved. She also made it clear that being transgender didn't define her entire existence. She was a model, an actress, a woman, not just a label. Her story inspired a generation of trans youth to believe they could live authentically without giving up their dreams. Jennings may be one of the youngest people to openly transition in the public eye, but she's also one of the most impactful. From the moment she was old enough to talk, Chaz knew who she was. Born male, she expressed her identity as female from the age of 3. Her parents, instead of resisting, supported her. A decision that would lead to one of the most groundbreaking moments in television and LGBTQ+ history. At just 6 years old, Chaz began appearing in interviews, including on national TV, speaking about what it was like to be a transgender child. Her story was unique, not just because of her age, but because of how clearly she explained her identity. She wasn't confused. She wasn't experimenting. She knew. She didn't shy away from tough moments. On screen, Chaz talked openly about medical struggles, mental health, and self-doubt. At one point, she discussed the complications surrounding her gender confirmation surgery. But through it all, she remained hopeful and grounded. What made Chaz's story stand out wasn't just that she was young, it was how mature she became under pressure. She began giving speeches, attending rallies, and even writing books for kids to better understand gender identity. She was more than a reality star. She became a role model. Even as the cameras rolled, Chaz focused on her education. She was accepted to Harvard, showing that being visible and successful aren't mutually exclusive. Her intelligence and determination shattered every stereotype thrown her way. In a world where beauty pageants have long followed rigid traditions, Bailey Ann Kennedy stepped on stage and changed the game forever. In 2024, she became the first transgender woman crowned Miss Maryland USA. And not just that, she's also the first Asian American to win the title. But Bailey's story isn't just about crowns and sashes. It's about shattering expectations and standing proud in a world that's still learning how to accept difference. Bailey was born in the Philippines and moved to the United States as a child. Like many trans kids, she struggled with her identity in silence for years. Growing up, she often felt like she had to hide parts of herself to be safe, to be accepted. But instead of folding under pressure, she focused on growth. Mentally, emotionally, and personally. Her journey through transition was quiet at first, marked by inner challenges and small wins. Then she found her confidence. And the spotlight. Entering pageants wasn't just about beauty. For Bailey, it was about visibility. She wanted to show other transgender women that they belonged in spaces where they had never seen themselves before. And when she walked onto that stage in Maryland, she wasn't just competing. She was representing an entire community. Winning the title was a moment that echoed across the pageant world. Photos of her smiling in a white gown, crown on her head, began spreading on social media. And just like that, she became a symbol of what's possible when courage meets opportunity. After her win, Bailey used her platform to advocate for inclusion. She spoke about mental health, body positivity, and self-acceptance. She wasn't just a title holder, she became a mentor for young people questioning their identity or feeling like they didn't belong. And now check this out. This is how a neural network imagined what Jim Parsons might look like if he transitioned. Pretty wild, right? The resemblance is still totally there, but with a whole new vibe. What do you think? Do you like this version? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And while you're at it, tell me which celebrity do you think would look amazing if they transitioned? Let's get creative. Carla Gascon isn't just making waves. She's rewriting the script for what's possible in the film industry. Originally from Spain, Carla spent years building her acting career in soap operas and television dramas under her former identity. But in 2018 she came out as a transgender woman. It was a deeply personal decision, and she knew it could cost her roles. What she didn't know was that it would lead her to one of the biggest milestones in modern film history. Fast forward to 2024, Carla starred in Emilia Perez, a unique musical crime drama that turned heads at international festivals. In the film, she played a drug lord who transitions to become a woman and start a new life. It was bold, emotional, and layered, and Carla delivered a performance that had critics raving. The role wasn't just powerful, it mirrored parts of her own experience with gender identity and transformation, adding depth that couldn't be faked. Then came the moment that made headlines around the world. Carla became the first openly transgender woman to win Best Actress at the Cannes Film Festival. Soon after, she received a Golden Globe nomination. It wasn't a token nomination, it was earned. Her performance went toe-to-toe with some of the biggest names in cinema. Carla's presence on the red carpet, proudly herself, broke down barriers that had long kept trans actresses out of major award conversations. She wasn't cast for shock value or headlines. She was cast because she's incredibly talented. Before Laverne Cox became a household name, transgender actors were nearly invisible in mainstream entertainment. Today, thanks in large part to her, that's no longer the case. Laverne made history by starring as Sophia Bursett in Orange is the New Black, a breakout role that didn't just put her on the map but also showed audiences what authentic representation looks like. She didn't play a stereotype, she played a human being, full of complexity, heart, and struggle. What makes her journey so unforgettable is that she didn't just open doors, she kicked them wide open. In 2014 she became the first openly transgender person nominated for a Primetime Emmy in an acting category. Then came magazine covers, speaking gigs, and documentaries like Disclosure, where she explored how Hollywood has shaped, and often distorted, the public's view of transgender people. Laverne speaks with clarity, empathy, and strength. She doesn't pretend her journey was easy. She talks about discrimination, mental health, and the work that's still ahead. But she also celebrates joy, resilience, and the freedom that comes from finally being able to live as yourself. Today, Laverne Cox is more than an actress. She's a cultural force. Whether she's starring in a show or speaking at universities, she continues to change minds and uplift lives. And she's doing it all with purpose, power, and a stunning amount of grace. Alex Consani didn't just go viral. She flipped the script on what it means to be a model in the digital age. Her rise didn't begin on runways. It started on TikTok, where she mixed Gen Z humor with bold confidence and a striking look that turned heads. She wasn't afraid to be weird, funny, and fully herself. That combination quickly earned her a huge fan base, but she wasn't just a creator, she was a force ready to shake up fashion. Alex started modeling at a very young age. In fact, she was just 12 when she began doing shoots as a transgender girl. That alone made headlines, but she didn't stop there. With the rise of TikTok, her personality really took center stage. Brands noticed, designers took interest, and suddenly, Alex was being booked for campaigns and runway shows across the globe. In 2023, she became the face of major fashion houses and walked in some of the biggest shows during New York and Paris Fashion Week. Then came the biggest moment yet. She was named Model of the Year. That made her the first transgender woman to ever receive the honor. A huge milestone, not just for her but for the entire industry. What makes Alex special is how effortlessly she blends online culture with high fashion. She doesn't try to fit into a mold, she creates her own. She's a reminder that style isn't just about clothes, it's about energy, expression, and owning who you are. If music is power, then Pablo Vitar is a force of nature. Born in Brazil, Pablo exploded onto the scene with a voice that commands attention, and a look that defies labels. As a drag performer, singer, and LGBTQ+ icon, Pablo's career has gone from local stages to international arenas, all while breaking records and crushing stereotypes along the way. Pablo was raised in a small town, facing bullying and challenges early on. But instead of shrinking, Pablo leaned into creativity. Makeup, performance, and music became tools of expression. And when Pablo dropped the single Todo Dia in 2017, Brazil took notice. The song went viral. And so did the performer behind it. Since then, Pablo has released multiple hit albums, collaborated with global stars like Charli XCX and Anita, and built a reputation for high-energy performances packed with dance, style, and pride. What sets Pablo apart isn't just talent, it's bravery. As an openly gay drag queen in a country where LGBTQ+ rights are still under threat, Pablo's visibility is revolutionary. Despite the risks, Pablo keeps showing up, on stage, on TV, and in campaigns for major brands. Time and again, they've used fame to elevate voices that often go unheard. They've turned concerts into celebrations, and videos into statements. And every time they step onto a stage, it's more than entertainment. It's empowerment. Pablo Vitar proves that artistry and activism can go hand in hand. From Brazil to the world, they're not just performing, they're leading a movement. And every glittering outfit and bold lyric says the same thing. Be loud, be proud, and never let anyone dim your shine. Petras isn't just a pop star, she's a phenomenon. With a voice built for stadiums and hooks that get stuck in your head for days, she's taken over the charts while rewriting what success can look like for a transgender artist. Born in Germany, Kim knew from a young age that she was a girl. She started her transition early, undergoing gender confirmation surgery at just 16. A move that made headlines around the world and sparked global conversations about trans youth. But Kim never wanted to be famous because of her transition. She wanted to be known for her music. And she delivered. Starting with catchy, independently released tracks like I Don't Want It At All, she quickly built a fan base online. Her early sound was bubblegum pop with a rebellious edge, fun, fierce, and addictive. Before long, she was collaborating with some of the biggest names in music, including Charli XCX, Sam Smith, and Nicki Minaj. In 2023, she made history as the first openly transgender woman to win a Grammy, taking home the award for Best Pop Duo Group Performance alongside Sam Smith for their smash hit Unholy. When she stepped onto that stage to accept the trophy, it was more than just a win for her. It was a moment that inspired countless others around the world who saw their own dreams in her story. What's so exciting about Kim is that she's not slowing down. Her sound has evolved, moving from candy-coated anthems to darker, more experimental vibes, always pushing the limits of what pop music can be. Her fashion is bold, her visuals are wild, and her message is clear: be who you are, and don't apologize for it. Ella Morgan Clark didn't join Married at First Sight UK to make history, she simply wanted to find love. But when she walked down the aisle, she became the first transgender bride on the show, and her story quickly captured hearts across the UK and beyond. A clinic consultant from Weston-super-Mare, Ella was open from the start. She told the experts, and her future husband, that she was transgender. It wasn't framed as drama, it was real, honest, and brave. Her confidence and warmth made an instant impact on viewers. Ella shared parts of her transition, her dating struggles, and the emotional ups and downs of the experiment. But through it all, she stayed true to herself. Bold, glamorous, and full of heart. She wasn't just looking for love, she was representing thousands of people who rarely see themselves on screen. Her appearance sparked conversations, shattered stereotypes, and reminded viewers that everyone deserves a chance at love, no matter their journey. Ella didn't just walk down the aisle, she opened doors for others to follow. That's about it. What is your attitude towards transgender people? Write in the comments. For more useful information, watch other videos.